This actually happened last night, but it has been bugging me since it happened. I feel like the a-hole, but I also don't. Long story short, I'm separated from my soon-to-be ex-husband. We were together for 10 years, married for 6. We've been separated for about 2 months after it came to light that he was cheating on me with a 19-year-old and broke his 4-year sobriety. We have 2 small children, 5 years and 11 months. I also have an 11-year-old stepdaughter. My ex and his ex-wife's marriage was annulled before I came into the picture. For the entire time I was with my husband, he paid $900 a month in child support, sometimes more even. When my oldest was 2 weeks old, he gave his ex $3,000 because she was several months behind on rent and was facing eviction. With my stepdaughter, it was always on us to get her new school clothes, supplies, shoes, etc. Her mother would just forget. With my husband just up and abandoning us, it has put me in a financial bind. I'm on a fixed income, student stipend, and only receive $1,300 a month. I have filed for child support through my state, but who knows when I begin receiving it. Last night, out of the blue, his ex messaged me. Apparently, when my husband abandoned us, he stopped paying his child support too. He has not paid for November, nor will he probably pay for December either. His ex asked me to pay his back and current child support. She and her new partner have 1 child already, and she is expecting again. She told me how they were counting on that money to catch up on bills, take care of Christmas. I told her no, there is no way I can do that. I have my own 2 children to care for. I'm barely surviving as it is. While my ex is still paying the mortgage, I'm responsible for utilities and such. I can't help he has decided to not pay child support. She called me selfish, an a-hole, accused me of not caring about my stepdaughter, threatened legal action to make me pay. At that point, I rolled my eyes and stopped responding. Part of me feels bad because I know my stepdaughter is the one who will suffer. But part of me is like, well, tough luck, because both she and her partner work full-time. I'm a full-time student, stay-at-home mom, who was thrust into single motherhood by her ex having his midlife crisis and just ducking off. So, Reddit, am I the a-hole? Not the a-hole, and do not pay. I understand it's a crappy situation and you obviously care for your stepdaughter, but you can't provide for a child that is not your responsibility at the expense of your own children's well-being. Your husband's ex is trying to play on your emotions to manipulate you into making a decision that will put your little ones at risk for not being provided for. Don't fall for it. Make sure to check with the mortgage lender to make sure your soon-to-be ex-husband is actually paying it. Don't count on his word because obviously words and his vows mean nothing. Not the a-hole. She needs to pursue child support through the courts and get it from your ex. This is not your problem. She and her new partner should not be counting on child support for your stepdaughter to use for their own needs and their other children's needs. You and his previous ex should be working together to make sure he pays all of his child support. Be sure to have child support paid through the courts, not directly. I want to say first off, I don't think there is anything wrong with not having children. I don't care at all if she has them or not, and I don't think anyone even needs a reason. It should be totally acceptable to just not want them. I have a stepdaughter who I will call Isabel. I married her dad when she was 13, and my bio daughter Claire was 12. Isabel clearly was not happy and wanted nothing to do with us. I struggled a lot because the more I tried with her, the angrier she got. But then when I left her alone, I worried I was excluding her. Isabel and Claire hated each other, and I was constantly refereeing that. My husband saw very little problem with this and said it is just how she is. Isabel moved out at 18 and didn't come home for summers or vacations. She would talk to her dad on the phone but kept a huge distance. Claire got engaged recently and we threw an engagement party. Isabel came because her dad guilted her, which was maybe not the best choice, but he is fed up with how much she avoids everyone. During the party, I heard Isabel talking to her mother-in-law. Isabel's husband is out of town and she demanded to have a +1. Isabel said that she wants kids, but is too scared to take the plunge. Because what if she ever divorced her husband? She said she can't imagine it happening, but she knows if it did, she would not be okay with being single, and forcing a kid into a blended family is just wrong. She said she feels guilty having kids if there is even a 1% possibility they could end up living with strangers. And then she told her mother-in-law that she felt like she never had a home or a family and couldn't wait to get out at 18. I just saw red, because I did everything I could to make it feel like she had a family, and it seems insensitive to say she didn't have a home, when thousands of kids actually don't have homes. I approached Isabel and said I heard what she said, and I'm sorry if she feels that way, but she isn't going to say that in our house when it is totally unfair. And if she really feels that way, maybe she should see someone because it isn't normal at her age. Isabel said she was leaving and stormed off, and my husband is furious and feels that I hurt his relationship with his daughter. I know that Isabel didn't like Claire and didn't respond well to your attempts at blending the family. But did it ever occur to you that you weren't actually the problem? You say that her dad saw very little problem and said that's just how she is. I can only speculate, of course, but it sure sounds like Dad is the one who dropped the ball on helping to successfully blend the family. Like Dad maybe didn't do everything he should have. Was Dad maybe too busy? Did Isabel really need Dad time and kept getting you and Claire? Did Dad put too much effort into their relationship after Isabel grew up and moved out, beyond answering calls and guilting her into attending an event she clearly didn't want to go to? And you've said nothing about Isabel's mom. That could also be playing a role in this. Ultimately, Isabel's allowed to feel however she wants about this, and her perspective may be very different than yours. But I don't think you're actually considering that, and that could have been one of the issues while Isabel was growing up. I'm gonna say you're the a-hole. You're the a-hole. Whilst you may have been upset by what she said, 1, she didn't say it to you. 2, there's clearly a reason she feels that way. You overstepped a boundary of butting in on a conversation that wasn't with you because your feelings got hurt. But whether you like it or not, she has every right to feel the way she does, and she's entitled to feeling that way. You're the a-hole. You may have legitimately and honestly tried, but that doesn't change the fact that how she felt was true and valid. Yeah, OP could have been the greatest mom ever, but being forced to have a new stepmother and a stepsister you don't like is never going to endear someone to you. Honestly, I hate stepfamilies for this reason. It has to be something all the kids want for it to be successful. Anything forced on a child is going to suck for them. Imagine as an adult, your spouse just decides one day to get 2 new roommates. You're like, no. And he's like, yeah, it's happening. Shortly after that, you have 2 new roommates that you had zero choice in picking out, and you don't want there. You just want it to be you and your spouse. You feel like your home has been invaded. Would you want those people to stay? No. Does not matter if they are nice, and this obviously does not factor in all the jealousy kids feel towards other kids, and the fact that the stepmother tells them what to do and has power over them. My husband was previously married. He and his wife both had affairs during the marriage, though he openly admits to doing so more than her. They had some fundamental compatibility issues for sure. They ended the marriage when their daughter, Julie, was 9, and he and I met a year later. Julie is now 16, and our kids together are 5 and 3. A few days ago, he tells me he has something to tell me. He tells me that an affair partner of his recently tracked him down and told him he was the father to her now 10-year-old, Olivia, who was of course conceived during his first marriage. He had gone on a work trip out of town that was actually to see his former affair partner, get a DNA test, and meet Julie. He tells me that when he got there, it was immediately clear that the affair partner was really struggling mental health-wise, and she sprung it on him that she wanted him to take primary custody, which he had on the spot agreed to, because what else was he supposed to say? I was pissed. We're supposed to be a team, and he should never have agreed without talking to me. And while intellectually I knew he had affairs during his first marriage, seeing the proof is very different. I'm already juggling 2 toddlers with a stepdaughter that doesn't even want to be here most of the time because teenagers. I don't need another angsty stepdaughter that I'm the primary care provider for. I work part-time from home, he works full-time outside the house, so I'm with all the kids way more than him. He's convinced Olivia and Julie, who does not know yet, will get along great. He asked if I was really going to bar my stepdaughter from our house, and I said I didn't even know I had another stepdaughter until today. How is that fair? He said we didn't have a choice, and the outcome would be the same either way. I was so angry that I had to leave the house to go to my sister's where I am now. He's begging me to come back because Julie gets here tomorrow, and he wants us to be a united front. He needs to tell her ASAP before she finds out on her own via other means. But my sister said I just needed to roll with it, and Olivia's existence has nothing to do with my relationship, and wasn't Olivia's fault anyway. And while Julie hasn't yet been told, Julie's mom, his ex, has, and her reaction was very low-key, immediately fine with it because it's not like she didn't know he cheated. Not the a-hole. If he wanted you as a united front, he should have brought you in on the process from the beginning. If you stay with him, then yes, you will need to accept this child and welcome her as your own. It's not fair to her to have the adult who's her primary caregiver treating her as an imposition. But for exactly that reason, your husband should have never agreed to take her in without your involvement. Frankly, even if he was committed to taking her in no matter what, he should have invited you into the process earlier and listened to what you had to say about it. Also, for exactly that reason, you shouldn't go back unless you're genuinely prepared to welcome her without reservations. If you don't think you can do this, you're better off leaving for good, partly for your own protection and partly for hers. Not the a-hole. He should have told you as soon as the affair partner reached out about the child potentially being his. The fact that he kept that from you and lied about taking a work trip is a major breach of trust. The outcome of that trip always had the potential to impact both of you. But the child is his. I assume he did in fact get a DNA test and can no longer stay with her mother, so he has a responsibility to care for her. Your options are to get on board or remove yourself from the situation, i.e., divorce. There is no middle ground here. If you do stay, family and couples therapy are going to be a must, along with individual therapy for Olivia. Not the a-hole. You just need to roll with it? No, your sister needs to keep quiet. You just found out about a whole stepchild you didn't know about, and without giving you warning or any time to process this at all, he's already decided that she's coming to live with you. That makes it 4 children you'll have primary care of because he works full-time. Most people have a bit more warning before adding a child to their household. Well, he's made it clear that he doesn't value your opinion, just your ability to provide free childcare for him at the drop of a hat. Honestly, reading this makes me so angry on your behalf. I'd walk out permanently if it were me. I got married a few years ago and my brother stopped talking to me the day after. I've only officially found out the reason recently when his wife spoke to my dad, saying I need to apologize to him for not inviting X to the wedding. To explain, I invited my brother, his wife, and his stepdaughter, and he contacted me asking me to consider inviting his stepdaughter's boyfriend because he considers him to be like family. I said no, because although it's great they have that relationship, A, I've met him once at their wedding, tried to speak to them as a couple. They weren't interested and walked off. B, I didn't invite some of my friends' partners because of numbers. C, weddings are expensive, and writing the guest list was bad enough without inviting people I don't know. He sent me quite nasty texts about it, and I remember crying a few times about what he'd said when it should have been an exciting time. He stopped making contact with me since the day after the wedding. On the day, he came over to say goodbye and congratulations. His wife looked me up and down in a dirty way and just walked off without saying anything to me at all. On a side note, she does not like my family and has made rude comments about us all in our company. I carried on texting and inviting them to things after the event that we did as a family, and he just ignored me. We've had birthdays, etc., where he hasn't come because I've been there. He's also driven off without seeing my parents when I've pulled up to their house at the same time. I've also had cards received stating it's from them and X's name was highlighted on it. You know, like when you highlight a textbook for a test? He barely speaks to anyone in my family anymore and seems to have a problem with all of us, including my niece and nephew who are children and clearly innocent. I contacted him recently to talk about it, and he wouldn't accept that I didn't do anything wrong, and so shouldn't be apologizing, and that if anything, he should apologize for his disproportionate reaction to me not inviting a stranger along. I did consider it at one point because it would have just been easier, but he was so horrible to me about it and made such a big deal, I decided against it. I'm not a pushover, and it was our day. Needless to say, the conversation didn't end well, and we're still not talking. He hung up on me during and sent me aggressive texts afterwards, and to my dad saying why we will no longer be speaking. Am I the a-hole? Not the a-hole. It was your wedding. You didn't want to invite a stranger to it. To any reasonable adult, that would be the end of it. Move on, have a life. Instead, he and his wife decided to make this the catalyst for ruining their relationship with your entire family. Honestly, at this point, I'd stop trying if I were you. You tried for a long time. Let it go and let yourself rest. You're using way too much energy on him. Not the a-hole. Weddings are expensive, and at least where I come from, you pay for stuff like food on a per-person basis, so every additional person you invite adds to the cost of your wedding. Also, it's your wedding. Only you and your partner get a say in who you want there. It was fine for your brother to ask for the boyfriend to be invited, but he should have accepted that you didn't want that person there. And for him to still be mad at you about this years later, I'm sorry, but that's just childish. Based on this alone, this seems awfully disproportionate and petty. I would not consider a boyfriend of a nibbling that high on the invite priority list, unless they were at basically inseparable status. But that's just me. I wonder if there's something else going on. It's hard because for some reason they went no contact, but didn't seem to explain why. As though you were supposed to know it was some sort of massive faux pas to not invite the boyfriend of a niece? Not the a-hole.